welcome to Business Connections. I'm Holly Allen, Director of Marketing and Communications for the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce, and this is a program put together by the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. One of the services that we offer our member businesses is public policy, and with 2,400 members and 3 lobbyists on staff, we are the largest business advocacy group in the Dayton region. Every 2 years we put together a legislative agenda, which is essentially a roadmap for our public policy team, and that's what we're talking about today. But before we get started with my two guests today, we want to show you a little video we put together to explain the legislative agenda.
The Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce is the advocate, the voice of the business community. We have 3 lobbyists on staff who work with local, state, and federal elected officials both in Columbus and Washington, D.C. Every 2 years, your chamber lays out its legislative and regulatory agenda. So what is it? Well, it's a roadmap for our advocacy staff. It guides us and ensures we stand by our commitment to promote business-friendly policy decisions at all levels of government. Your Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce advocacy team works in many different areas of public policy. Today, you'll hear a few of our top priorities for 2017 and 18. First, your chamber will champion the region's transportation and infrastructure upgrades and improvements. In fact, as we speak, the Dayton region is advocating for 10 different transportation improvement projects, totaling more than $186 million in investments. We'll also advocate for business-friendly state income and corporate activity tax, or CAT rates. This is important for keeping Ohio and the Dayton region economically competitive. Our next priority is to go after state and local legislative opportunities that would identify Ohio as a right-to-work state. We want to make sure Ohio's employees have a choice in their workplace representation. Speaking of right to work, did you know 27 states currently have right-to-work laws on the books? They include 4 of our neighbors: Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia. Ohio's designation as a right-to-work state will help attract and retain businesses in Ohio and the Dayton area. Over the next 2 years, we'll advocate for accountability and improvement in our local school systems. We support the Dayton region's big goal. That is that by 2025, 60% of adults ages 25 to 64 will have a college degree or post-high school credential. Your chamber will support local, state, and federal resource assistance opportunities for minority, women, and veteran-owned businesses. After all, they add up to 80,000 businesses, all contributing to Ohio's economy. We'll also work to make sure the state's choices for funding through the state capital budget are strategic, and that the needs of the Dayton region are well known and clearly defined. When we speak with one voice, we ensure our community priorities are vetted and poised for economic success. We can't talk priorities without mentioning Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. It has a $4 billion annual economic impact and is home to 28,000 employees in the Dayton region. Your chamber is committed to preserving and growing this valuable federal asset and ensuring its priorities are paramount. There you have it. We've taken a brief look at not all, but some of the most important work your business advocacy team will be doing over the next 2 years. You can get more details on our plan at DaytonChamber.org. And remember, as a Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce member, you're a part of the largest business advocacy organization in the region. We're backed by the voices of more than 2,400 employers. While you're growing your business, we're making sure your voice is heard.
Now that you've seen a little overview of our priorities for the next couple of years, I'd like to introduce my 2 guests for today. My colleague here, Chris Kershner, he's with the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce, and John Allison, who's Executive Vice President of Business Development and Integration at CareSource. But John, you're also a member of the Chamber's board, our executive committee, and you sit on the legislative committee, which is the committee that oversees the legislative agenda, correct?
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here. Thank you for being our guest today. We want to talk a little bit about, well, the video we just saw, which was kind of a summary and overview of this legislative agenda, which will be in place for the next 2 years. But let's talk about first how we choose the priorities for that agenda. Chris, we'll start with you. How do you tackle this job of laying out the legislative agenda priorities?
Sure. Thanks, Holly. That's a great question. You know, we're a member-driven organization. You mentioned in the beginning 2,400 members, throughout a 9-county region, it's important that we reflect the priorities of those members. So we have a process where we are able to consider what their priorities are. As the chair of our Public Policy Committee and his work on the Legislative Committee, John has helped oversee that process. But really where we get these priorities from are from staff and what they've heard when they're out there meeting with our member businesses and are part of the business community. Some of the priorities bubble up. We survey our members on what public policy issues are most important to them. And then we have a legislative committee. So generally what happens is staff through that process helps prepare some draft documents. Legislative committee adds on to those draft documents. And then they make a recommendation to our executive committee and ultimately our board for our legislative agenda. It can get changed throughout that entire process to ensure we're really meeting the priorities of our members. It's important to know this is really, you said a roadmap, I think that's a great term, because it really is that 40,000 foot view, philosophical standpoint of where we're going to be as an organization, what issues we're going to focus on, what issues are important to our members, and what's going to help really guide our lobbying and advocacy activities over the next few years. There's some specifics in there, but there's not a lot of specifics because we want to have the ability to flex and to be able to adjust to the priorities of the business community as they evolve over the next 2 years with this guiding document in place.
You mentioned one of the important pieces is the volunteer involvement. John, you kind of lead that effort. Can you talk about, as a chamber volunteer and a business leader in the Dayton community, how important it is for you to have input on what the chamber will be working on legislatively in the next couple of years?
Well, certainly, and advocacy is a significant part of our investment in the Dayton Chamber, and without our input, we can't really set the menu, the agenda, and it's very important that the members of these committees continue to not just kind of set the menu at the beginning of the year, but to be involved throughout. We know that certainly there are a lot of changes happening in Washington right now, changes happening in Columbus, and changes happening here with county and municipal government. It's important that we are, with the staff's help, in tune with those changes, thinking about how that impacts our agenda, and looking for our opportunities to make an impact to make Dayton better.
Yeah, and what are you looking for when you're looking at the different issues? There are a lot of them we could take on. So what stands out to you that would be important to make it in this roadmap, as you called it?
Well, and if the viewers have an opportunity to take a look at the Chamber's legislative agenda, you'll see that there are some areas that it will not be a surprise: workforce, infrastructure, supporting our efforts around Right Pad. Regulation changes, taxes, the typical issues that businesses care about.
Right. So you're looking for things that affect you, I'm sure,
do.
that affect our entire business community. You mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned it, but one of the things that was in the video was transportation infrastructure. It's been a priority for the Chamber for a really long time. We've done a lot of work in it, Chris. One of the projects that came to fruition was the I-75 remodernization project. The Chamber was very much involved in that. Why is a strong infrastructure, John, I'll ask you as a business leader, why is that so important to our business community?
Well, certainly for CareSource, with a significant downtown presence, we selfishly care about making sure that our employees have ease of getting in and out of downtown Dayton. We care about public transportation and how that impacts our members. But when we think beyond CareSource and you think about what's happening with the logistics business in the Miami Valley, manufacturing business, we have to be state of the art, and that's not just roads and bridges. We have to have state of the art air transportation. All of that needs to come together in order for Dayton and the Miami Valley to continue to be competitive, both in Ohio and across the country and globally.
Right. And Chris, you were one of the people with the Chamber who was doing a lot of work in transportation. Can you talk about maybe some things that could be on the horizon, some projects that might catch the Chamber's interest in the next couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely. And John's exactly right. Our advocacy efforts around transportation, in my opinion, are twofold. It's focused on ensuring that employees have the ability to get to and from their place of work easy. When we have companies like CareSource that are making significant investments in our downtown and really helping contribute to our economy, we want to make sure their employees, their customers, their members that they serve are able to get to and from their doctor's offices, their nurses' offices, their place of employment very easily. The second leg of that stool really is helping out a lot of our companies that are on the road for their businesses. You know, manufacturers that receive just-in-time deliveries. You know, we have a great logistics distribution industry here in the Dayton region. And as they are looking to receive goods just in time for their manufacturing line, and our logistics companies like Jet Express and Dayton Freight and Rush are all making those deliveries just in time, if there's a blockage on the roadway or there's an accident on the roadway or we don't have an efficient infrastructure network, those just-in-time deliveries aren't able to get to their manufacturing plants in time. That then makes that manufacturing plant less attractive to their corporate office for them to want to continue operations in the Dayton region. So we want to make sure that they're getting the parts that they need, the supplies that they need, as soon as they need them. We also want to make sure that as they're shipping goods out, as plants like Fu Yao, who's a great chamber member, is shipping windshields out to automotive companies across the country and across the world, we want to make sure that they have an efficient transportation network to get that product out so it can get to their customers as soon as possible. So really, I mean, it's really twofold. It's that commuter, it's the employees, but it's also a strong focus on supporting our manufacturing industry and our customer and our companies that have their businesses being on the road.
Right.
You asked about new projects, so I don't want to get away from that.
No.
New projects that we see coming, you know, the chamber and the business community have long supported, and it's our #1 project, to widen State Route 35 in Montgomery County. This is really between 675, which is the Greene County border, and downtown Dayton, adding a third lane each direction to help improve that critical artery that links downtown with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and the east side of the region. We want to make sure that those backups are eliminated and that they can continue to free flow and allow for a lot of that business and commuter traffic to be able to easily move down that corridor. So we're going to continue to support that project. It's about a $30 million project. We're working closely with ODOT, City of Dayton, MVRPC to try to find an innovative solution on how to get that fixed. I am happy to let everyone know that State Route 35 in Greene County actually received funding, or funding got authorized for what's called the Super Street in Greene County on 35, which is going to allow for Greene County's 35 to be 87% efficient now. It's had about 65% efficiency rating. This super street that they're going to put in is going to allow for free-flowing traffic 87% of the time in Greene County, which is a huge improvement. And I know there's been a lot of concern out there about improving the access in that artery, and this was really going to help it. So, couple projects there on the east-west corridor. We're also continuing to work with others to make sure that Austin Road is improved to allow for more traffic on the south side of town.
Right.
We're working close up by the airport to improve roadways around the airport and to advocate for funding to support really our logistics industry. We're continuing to see companies, just recently in the first part of this year, Spectrum Brands, not the cable company, also chamber member, but
Right.
Spectrum Brands.
Have to make that distinction.
Who does Armor All. They're going to do the research and development, the manufacturing and distribution of Armor All, AC Pro, STP products. Recruited them here to the Dayton region. They're going to have 350 jobs up there, and they're going to be doing a lot of distribution of their products. So we want to make sure that the roadways are wide enough to support the trucks, as well as their 350 employees that they're going to have going into their shop. Right next to that is P&G, Caterpillar's up there, Payless Shoes. A lot of great companies that are making investments, but we got to make sure that we have the infrastructure to support the truck traffic and the workforce traffic that's going to be up there. So we have projects going on all around the region, and that's just a flavor of what we got going on.
And that's just one topic in the legislative agenda, so it sounds like you'll be a little busy over the next couple of years. So transportation has always been a focus for our public policy team, but we're talking a little more timely this time around about right-to-work legislation. And just recently, the last couple of months, we've had a couple states come online to become right-to-work states. Chris, I will start with you. Where do you think that's headed in the state of Ohio? That discussion has been kind of rumbling for a little while.
Sure. I think it's inevitable in the state of Ohio. When you have states like Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, and Michigan, and I say that with some emphasis because, as we all know, Michigan has long been a strong labor hold, and the fact that Michigan realized that they need to have right to work to be economically competitive really sends a signal. So when we have all of our surrounding states, everybody except for Pennsylvania, that has now become a right to work state, it gives us an an economic disadvantage. We are not as competitive as we could be when we are looking to recruit companies and retain companies here in the Dayton region. And that's really our focus on right to work. We don't have we're not here to say that labor unions are bad. We're not here to say that organized labor is not something that should be considered in certain businesses. We think that should be up to the employees to choose if they want to affiliate with such an organization. We're just here to say we don't think those employees should be mandated. We believe that you should have freedom in your workplace. Let's take the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. Our members, like CareSource, are not mandated to join the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. It's our responsibility to provide value to them. If they see a value, then they join the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce and become a member. We believe that same attitude should be reflected in organized labor, that individuals should not be forced to join an organized labor organization in a company, but should have the choice. And if that group is providing value and people find a benefit, then they can choose to affiliate or not affiliate as they so choose. So it's really that workplace freedom as well as the being economically competitive. We are losing economic opportunities every day to those surrounding states that are right to work states because we don't even make the list. There's times when we're working with companies from out of state that are considering moving to the Midwest, and they tell us, Ohio's not on the list because you're not a right to work state.
Right.
So when we're losing economic opportunities, we're losing jobs, it opens our eyes and says we need to do something. So I really think it's inevitable on when that's going to happen.
John, CareSource has, as you mentioned, made a really big commitment to downtown Dayton. You've been growing exponentially in recent months. And so a lot, I think, about making those decisions as far as where are you going to invest in your business. And one of the things we hear from businesses over and over again is workforce, how important workforce is. Can you talk from the stance of a business leader in the Dayton region, the work that we have ahead of us in the Dayton area to make sure that not only we have the education and the skills within our workforce, but that we align them to the needs of our business community?
Sure. Well, Holly, I will tell you at CareSource we are blessed to have a fantastic workforce, but it's not by accident. It takes work to actually go out and recruit the talent that we have. I'm sure other Dayton businesses experience that as well. I think we have some absolutely terrific things happening in Dayton and the Miami Valley. You think about the preschool work that's happening in Dayton now under the leadership of the mayor and others, the county commissioners and others, and supported by the taxpayers at the ballot. I think that is at the beginning of the process, the beginning of the workforce process, a significant investment that is getting national attention. We have a great, as you know, a great group of higher education partners to work with in Dayton.
Yeah.
And it's incumbent upon us to make sure that they get supported and that we've got the right kind of dialogue back and forth with those higher education partners so that they have a sense of what our workforce needs are and they can help us with a pipeline. One thing that we've done at CareSource that's related to both our workforce and the workforce of other Miami Valley companies is we focused on a pilot basis with a program we call Job Connect, where we're actually having Medicaid members, local folks who are on Medicaid, who are volunteering to join our Job Connect program at CareSource, and we train them, we prepare them, we help them get ready for interviews, and we have about 40 local employer partners around the valley who are actually helping us feed those folks into their workforce pipeline, and that's one place where we're very proud that we're helping our members really find new opportunities, and more than 90% of the more than 350 who we've gotten jobs in the last year and a half have transitioned off Medicaid and onto employer-sponsored health care.
That's fantastic.
That's
That's great to
Something
hear.
we're very proud of and want to do not just in the Miami Valley, but across Ohio and the other states where we do business.
Yeah, that is fantastic that you're doing that great work. Chris, I know the Chamber has quite a few initiatives in the workforce realm. I think one of the things that we've identified, as I mentioned, was aligning the skill set of our workforce with the business needs. Can you talk about the role the Chamber plays in that?
Absolutely. And John mentioned something about our higher education institutions. We're blessed in the Dayton region to have over 30 higher education institutions that currently have over 100,000 students at those higher ed institutions. our workforce solution is right under our nose. We have the students here, we have the talent here, we have the colleges and universities that are trying to align and are successfully aligning their degree programs with the needs of the business community. So as companies like CareSource and others are hiring individuals and are looking to grow their workforce and are looking for skilled talent, it is right here. Where we need to do better, and there's work being done on this, but we can always improve, is connecting those students as they're coming out of the universities with opportunities at companies like CareSource and others. So, we work closely with the universities to ensure that they know what some of our growing industry fields are, whether that's healthcare, whether that's logistics and supply chain management, whether that's engineering, or something we've seen some growth in is petroleum engineering, as Ohio has had a strong boom in the fracking industry on the eastern side of the state. We're not drilling for natural gas here under our feet, but we have companies here that are supporting those industries. So as those companies continue to grow their footprint in that industry, they need to hire a local workforce to support it. So we're continuing to work with our colleges and universities to make sure that they are aware and that they are tailoring their programs to meet the jobs of today, but also the jobs of tomorrow.
I have one more question I want to ask you about on the Chamber's agenda. Of course, we can't leave out Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the largest employer in the state of Ohio, single-site employer. I think Wright-Pat will be the topic of discussion for the next couple of years as we look at the transition of power on the national level. A lot of people speculating what that means for Wright-Pat and other bases across the country. Can you talk about what the Chamber's involvement is in advocating for Wright-Pat and making sure that they come out on top in any changes that could come?
Absolutely. So it's critical. When you have an organization that has a $4.2 billion annual economic impact on your local economy, when they employ 28,000 people inside the fence and then about 2.1 for every one inside the fence, outside the fence, the economic impact is huge. And it's not just on the Dayton region, but it's also on the state of Ohio. So we need support from across the state if we want to continue to have this great economic stimulus coming out of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. We also need support from our federal government. When there's things like sequestration, it really hurts Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And I'm not saying we're against cuts from the federal government or being more efficient and doing more with less. Absolutely. But those cuts need to be made strategically. And it can't just be a 20% cut across the board, not taking into account our national defense or what's needed to support our military men and women that are in theater across the ocean or right here in our own country. So they just need to be very strategic cuts that ensure the efficiency and the national defense capabilities of our military can remain paramount.
Right.
So we're going to be working closely with federal government to make sure that they know what essential asset this is and that they're making the right decisions when they're looking at how to invest Department of Defense dollars in installations like Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Right. We have about a minute left, and while we have you here, I wanted to ask you real quickly about the state budget because Governor John Kasich introduced that in late January, the first iteration. What are your thoughts when you look at the initial proposal?
Yeah, first I should say we have not taken an official position on the state budget yet. We're certainly reviewing it at the time of this taping. The budget was just released last week, so we're still going through the thousands of pages to see where we're going to fall out on either the budget in its entirety.
You don't have it read yet?
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I'm on it. I'm on it. We put that on our public policy chair. We asked him to read it first and then transfer it over.
I'm working on it.
Right.
So we got to take a look at it and see where we're going to end up on the budget, or at least aspects of the budget. There's certainly things in there that are nice, and there's certainly things in there that maybe have given us a little bit of concern. There is an income tax cut of 17%, which our business community folks certainly appreciate. There's also a sales tax increase, which some folks have expressed some concern to us on. There's also a broadening of sales tax to some new services. There's an increase in cigarette and beer and wine taxes. So there's some things in there that we just want to take a look at, see where our members are at on it. Again, this isn't Chris Kershner's legislative agenda or Phil Parker's legislative agenda. This is our members' legislative agenda, and it's the positions we take are reflective of where our members are at. So we really need to get out in the field, talk to our members, see where they're at on the aspects of the state budget. Once we know that and fully understand that, we'll feel more comfortable taking a position.
Okay. John, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I think it's if you've ever been around a state budget before, you know that there's a lot of sound and and fury when the bill gets introduced, and then there's the marathon as the bill gets debated all the way until the end of June. So we have a long way to go. There'll be a lot of twists and turns. The House gets its turn, and then we'll react to that. The Senate does the same, and then they reconcile by the end of June. So we will be. I'm sure Chris will be very, very busy right after he finishes reading the bill.
He just threw it back on you.
He did.
Yeah.
There's something I should mention, because this is really is something that's unique for Ohio and makes me really proud of the way Ohio has set up their constitution, is we have to pass a balanced budget every 2 years by the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th, 2017 this year. We're not able to carry that, we're not able to kick the ball down the road. We have to pass that balanced budget. It has to be a sound budget, and it's hard, and there's hard decisions that have to be made, but you have to make those by June 30th per our state constitution. We're not able to pass a continuing resolution or to take on debt to help extend that budget. We've got to pass a sound, balanced budget, and we've done that every 2 years, and it's something that I'm certainly proud of. But I like having that. I like having that kind of line in the sand that says we got to get it done by this time.
Yeah, deadlines are good sometimes.
And we do have a tremendous over in Columbus. We have a tremendous delegation from the Miami Valley representing us. They are great friends of the chamber, great friends of the business community, great partners.
Yeah,
So
that's good to know.
We have a lot to ask of them in the next few months, as usual.
Busy time.
As our members put our trust in us, we then put our trust in our legislative delegation, and they've always done a great job representing us.
Well, we'll be keeping an eye on it. Thank you for updating us. Thank you for being with us today. I really appreciate both of you being here and sharing with our members and the community what the Chamber has going on legislatively. If you'd like to see that legislative agenda video again, you can check that out on our YouTube page. Share it if you'd like to. We would love that. Or just go to DaytonChamber.org. You can see it there as well, and you can always follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter for an inside look at some of the advocacy and business support that the Dayton Area Chamber does every single day. Thank you for being with us. I'm Holly Allen, Director of Marketing and Communications with the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. And stay tuned for a word from our President and CEO, Phil Parker.
Two of the greatest strengths of our regional business association is our understanding of public policy issues and our advocacy on issues that can have impact on the employer community. Every 2 years, coinciding with the Ohio Governor's biennium budget, key volunteers and staff work together to develop an agenda that will focus our collective attention on important statewide issues. Many of these issues will have local and regional impact. Some may even have national scope. For the next 2 years, we've developed this legislative regulatory agenda that was highlighted today by our show's guests. In 2017 and 18, we will focus much of our energies and resources in growing our area's businesses in an environment that is job and entrepreneur friendly. Our focus will be on these 11 areas: regulatory labor reform, logistics, transportation and infrastructure, national defense and federal installations, our state's budget and tax reform, regional cooperation, minority business development, energy and the environment, workplace safety, healthcare, trade, education, and our workforce. We believe each of these areas has impact on our business growth and the economic development of our region. We're fortunate to have over 100 volunteers helping the Chamber's professional staff navigate these areas with the purpose of helping the Miami Valley and Ohio enjoy the best business environment we can have that will create wins for our businesses, workers, families, governments, and community services. We appreciate your viewership today and hope you will support our Chamber's efforts to make the Miami Valley region the very best in America. Thank you.